Hello, in this module, I'd like to go over the three components of what makes the 4F25 system work. See, it's very important to understand the components of why something works. This way you can really maximize what you're doing. For example, I'm not into baking. I don't really know how to, I like to cook, but I don't know how to bake. I'm not really a baker. But if you gave me the ingredients and a recipe, and I follow the recipe, I'll be able to bake a cake because it's actually quite simple. My daughter, on the other hand, she's been baking since she was, 5, 6, 7 years old. So for 20 years, she's been baking. And she knows all the different aspects of baking. What happens if you put a little more flour? What happens if you put a little more water or take off? And because of that, she's able to make creations and really take advantage of recipes that she learns. Okay, so if you understand the components of what makes the 4F25 system work, you're going to be able to fully utilize these components to maximize your network growth and thereby maximizing your earnings. Okay, so let's get started. The first component of what makes the 4F25 system work, okay, is you're already using an asset you already have. Now, I always tell people that you already have 1 million people in your network. A lot of people don't believe me. Maybe some of you don't believe me. Well, allow me to prove it to you. Do you know 10 people? Of course you do. Now, these 10 people, would they also know 10 people? Of course they would. These 100 people, do they know 10 people? These 1,000 people, do they know 10 people? I think you know where I'm going with this. These 10,000 people, do they also know 10 people? And do these 100,000 people also know 10 people? So as you can see here, there you go. That's your network right there of actually over 1 million people. Now, I didn't say that you know 1 million people personally. What I said was that you have a network of 1 million people. Now, this is where a lot of people make a mistake in network marketing. They think it's about how many people you know. No, network marketing is about profiting from your network. So really, all we're doing here is using an asset you already have. All we're teaching people is using an asset you already have. Now, let me give a little example of what I mean by using your asset. If you were, for example, to inherit 20 acres of prime real estate in whatever country you're in, let's say if you're in Jakarta, where we are right now, you inherit 20 acres from your rich uncle in Kuningan, which is like prime property. And it's all yours, clean title. Now, would you go into the restaurant business? Of course not. Would you go into the laundromat business? Of course not. You'd go into the real estate development industry. Why? Because it's an asset you already have. You already have real estate. This is the reason why we need to point this out. All you need to do is, number one, understand you already have a network. Number two, the people you know also have a network already. Let's expand that question a little bit. Those 10 people you know, would you know 10 people who would like to make extra money? Of course, yes, etc., etc. You could take this all the way down. Those 10 people would also know 10 people who would like to make extra money. So that's the first component in what makes the 4F25 system work. You're using an asset you already have. Now let's examine the second component. The second component is using the power of multiplication to build a massive network. Most of us know the multiplication table. We studied multiplication in school. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. 9 times 9 is 81. But many people don't understand the power of multiplication. Allow me to illustrate my point. And I've asked this many times to many people in many countries. Let's take two scenarios. Scenario A, we will deposit $500,000 every 6 months in your account, okay, which is basically $1 million a year, for 25 years. Scenario B is we will put 1 cent, that's right, 1 cent into your account in 6 months and double that every 6 months for 25 years. Which one would you take? Now, if you're like most people, they say, oh, I'll take scenario A because that's $1 million a year. So that's $25 million all in all. After all, this is just a penny. It's just 1 cent. Well, let's take a look at what happens. And you'll see on the screen what I'm seeing on my computer. On the first year, you'll have $1 million in your account because $500,000 6 months, then $500,000. The first year, we have 1 penny doubled, that's 2 cents. So nothing much to look at. Second year, you'll see $2 million. Here you have 8 cents because the 2 cents becomes 4 cents and the 4 cents becomes 8 cents at the end of 2 years. And as you go down the line, you'll see that after 5 years, you have $5 million in your account and you now have $5.12 in the other account. So now you can buy maybe 2 or 3 Starbucks coffees. On the 6th year, you can see it's growing, it's growing. On the 8th year, you have 8 million in scenario A and you have $327.68 in scenario B. Now let's go to year number 9. 9 million here, and over here you have 1,310, and so forth and so forth. Finally, on the 13th year, you'll see you have 13 million here. Now it's starting to get sizable. On the other side, you now have $335,544. But still, it's not 13 million. And as you go down the line again, on the 14th year, on the 15th year, you'll see 15 million in scenario A and scenario B is 5.3 plus million. So it's getting sizable, but it's still not 15 million. But now look what happens on the 16th year. You have 16 million here. Now you have 21 million plus in scenario B. Why? Because you've doubled. You're now using the power of multiplication. Go to 17 million here, 85 million plus over here. On the 18th year, you now have 18 million here, 343 million in scenario B. Now which one will you take? Scenario A or scenario B? I'm pretty sure you're going to say scenario B. On the 19th year, as you can see, scenario B is now at $1.3 billion, while scenario A is only 19 million. 20 million after 20 years, but on the other side is 5.4 billion. On the 21st year, 21 billion. 22nd year, $87 billion. As you can see here, on the 24th year, you're already at $1.4 trillion as opposed to $24 million in scenario A. Now let's not even go into the 25th year because I think the point is already clear. You need to be able to use the power of multiplication, just like here in scenario B. This is where the big growth comes in. So in the beginning, it may not seem like a lot. Now, as you can see in the 4F25 system, it's the same thing. 4, 16, it's really not that much. But once you get down to 16,000, 65,000, 250,000, the power of multiplication starts to take over. Now, I'll tell you where so many people make a mistake. Everybody wants to get here. As you can see from 21, 22, 23, 20. Oh, everybody loves these big numbers. Everybody wants to get there. Everybody wants to get to the 256,000, 1 million people in the downline. Without realizing that to get there, you must go through the first 1, 2, 3, 4 years, or the penny, 2 pennies, 8 cents. You need to be able to use the power of multiplication to build a massive network. Most people use addition, which is they recruit, they recruit, they recruit, they recruit. That's linear growth. That's the power of addition. What we want in the 4F25 is using the power of multiplication. Now finally, the third component, okay, that makes this work, the 4F25, is the power of a lot of people doing a small thing. Okay, what's a lot of people doing a small thing? Bringing in 3, 4, 5 people, friends, relatives. Another small thing is just consuming 25 points a month, which is about $55, $60. Now in my country, in the Philippines, my grandmother had a huge poultry farm, and they also had rice fields and all that. So I spent a lot of time as a youngster in these farms. Now we have this thing called bayanihan, where farmers will move the hut from one rice field to another while resting for maybe 2 or 3 years, letting the fields lie fallow. Now, as you can see in the illustration, a whole bunch of people will lift up the hut of the farmer and move it over, I don't know, half a kilometer, 1 kilometer down. Nobody's really bearing a lot of weight because there's a lot of people carrying a 5, 10 pound weight, maybe 15 pound weight. Okay, that's the power of a lot of people doing a small thing. Okay, what you want to have is a network where everybody does small things. Sponsor 3, 4, 5 people. Consume 25 points a month. As you can see, if you use the power of multiplication, it comes up to a massive number of people in your organization and massive volumes, which result in massive income. Okay, so as long as you base the growth and the foundation of your network on these three components, you will always have solid residual income.